Our spaces are so important to us. We devote television shows to them. You can go to any number of satellite or cable channels, and they're going to be devoted to various home improvement kinds of things. Ways that you can improve your space, ways that you can make your space be more inviting, more pleasing, more productive, more profitable. We paint our walls, we decorate with photography, with art. Here in the Yellow Studio, I am surrounded by things that set a tone. I mean, you see, I don't know if that's Tweedledee or Tweedledum right there, but it's one of them. The other one is over here off camera. I have 4 color art prints of just killer cartoons. Here in the Yellow Studio, I'm kind of surrounded by cartoons and by figurines, and it's stuff. It's just stuff, but it's kind of cool stuff, and it's stuff that makes this space kind of a special space. I'm struck with all of these reality Survivor TV shows. Maybe you've seen some of them. There's all kinds of them. I'm particularly fond of the one where the guy, he's like an ex-Special Forces guy, and he's married to a reporter. I think she's from Australia. Man, Woman, and Wild, I think, is the name of it. It's pretty compelling TV. The first thing that happens, they're put in these real-world situations of survival. The very first thing that they do is shelter. I mean, the first thing they're worried about is they're worried about space. They're worried about the space that they're going to spend the night in. Is first and foremost, is it going to be safe? Is it going to provide them protection from the elements and from whatever dangers might be lurking? For many of us, that's a given. The Yellow Studio is not located in a dangerous part of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. The Yellow Studio is in a safe environment. There's trees all around. There's grass. There's sidewalks out front. There's a paved street. Safe. I don't have to worry about that. I just now have to worry about it being kind of cool, being a place where I'd like to spend some time, being a place where I can get something productive done, maybe a place that's can inspire, can be a bit of a muse, can spark creativity. But it's also a place where I can look at the creativity of other people. I can look at the art, the Ballard Street art, and I can be envious, that's for sure. It's just terrific stuff. I'm surrounded by books. I'm surrounded by music. All acts of creativity in my space. I've been to the classrooms of my kids, their teachers. My son, Ryan, is a co-conspirator in this Leaning Toward Wisdom project and the work that we purport to be setting about to do. And Ryan grew up playing hockey. His room reflects that. He has inserted a bit of hockey into who he is and to let these kids know who he is. And so he's got some hockey jerseys and he's got some hockey sticks. I think there's even a pair of hockey skates hanging from the wall. It's just part of the environment. It's just kind of cool. But I wonder about the space that goes on. I wonder about this space in our head. I wonder about this space between our ears. I wonder how prepared that space is. I wonder how prepared that soil is for creativity, for problem solving, for learning, for wisdom. it's pretty depressing when you continue to read all of the data and you look at all the numbers and they don't lie. I don't think. I realize you can lie with statistics, and studies can be contrived to draw any conclusion, I suppose, that you want. But I think there is sufficient evidence to prove that very young minds are very attuned to learning, want to learn, love to learn. And something happens around fourth grade, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, give or take, thereabouts. Something happens. Some change occurs in this space. This space that was once conducive to these things that we want these young minds to be conducive to, learning, something happens, something changes. And it could be argued that the barometer changes, and that changes everything. The barometer being that we're not so much concerned about scores, we're not so much concerned about grades and that, but there's a point that, yes, we're very concerned about that. In fact, there's a point that becomes our overriding concern. We're concerned about your grades because your grades are indicative of just, well, they're indicative of you. How good are you? Well, how good are your grades? Because that's how good you are. And then we grow older to be really ancient, like my age. And I find myself in the context of what I do in the business world, I find myself having this conversation repeatedly with solopreneurs, people in business who are kind of hanging their shingle out, doing their own thing by themselves, because you can do that. In today's world, it's great because the world is full of all these free agents. The world is full of these people who will do various things because that's what they love to do. And we don't need to hire them to do that as an employee. We can hire them on an as-needed basis. And as a result, people can involve themselves in these little solopreneur projects, and it's terrific. However, there are a lot of people that are cluttered. The space is still yelling at them. You are your job. And if your job was one thing and now you're trying to make your job something different, that space is, there's a lot of conflict in that space. Because from some point, fourth grade, give or take, are your grades good? Then you're good. If your grades are bad, then you're bad. Your job is who you are. Your job is what you are. And yet surely we have enough collective wisdom to know that's not true at all. It's not true at all. Now, there are people who game the system. And gaming the system can be any variety of kinds of things, and I'm sure something popped in your head the minute I used that phrase. I could argue that gaming the system is done by a student given to devotion to study and to memorize. Forget learning. Forget using your own brain. Forget being creative. Just know these facts, regurgitate these facts back correctly. You're a good student. It's gaming the system, kind of, sort of. I'm not saying that their intentions are bad. They're simply doing what they've been told to do. And, of course, then there's all that conversation that we all have about those young people, those kids who grow up, by the way, to be adults. I know we often forget that. We freeze them in time as 9-year-olds or 11-year-olds or whatever age they are, but they do grow up. They do grow up and they do develop minds of their own, and they do go out and they do buy homes and cars and take on work that might be meaningful and it might not be. Some of them just go chase money and others go chase dreams, and it's just how life goes. We're all different. But that space in our head, and that's something that changes, and that safety, and where we go to look for that safety in our head, in this space in our head. And not everybody goes to the same place. There are people on the planet who go to a space that, for whatever reason, they deem as safe, and for others of us, we look at it and we're thinking it's incredibly dangerous. The person who goes to drugs, the person who goes to alcohol, the person who goes to physical abuse. Not being the victim of, being the perpetrator of. Seems the thing to do. And yet for some of us, it's the furthest thing from our mind. It would not enter our consciousness that that's the place where we're going to go for solace. That's the place where we're going to go for safety. That's the place where we're going to shelter in for the night in a bottle or a syringe or, with a fist of fury. I think it's important to toil very hard, very, very hard at soil preparation, at preparing a mind for what is possible, preparing a mind for what can be, preparing a mind for the ability to grab a hold of a challenge and a problem and not be devastated by it, but rather to be challenged by it and to be so challenged as to rise to the occasion. And like Man, Woman, and Wild, when put out in a situation that is relatively foreign, is relatively unexpected, and now we must cope. Now we must deal with it because now the art is survival. How will we survive this? Until we can get to civilization or until we can be rescued. How do we survive? Well, that requires tremendous ingenuity. It requires tremendous awareness. It requires a lot of creativity. To see things not for what they are, but what they could be. And to see things not for what they were intended, but for what they could be used for. How do you teach that? Well, surely we can come up with scenarios. Those of us who have lived any length of time on the planet, we can throw out all kinds of hypotheticals that we ourselves know, well, they're not so hypothetical. They're rather realistic. What answers might we get? How about we throw the problems down on the floor and say, there it is, take a look at it. What do you think? That might be the beginning of developing a space, a mental space prepared for wisdom, prepared to involve itself in being a pretty nice space, a pretty comfortable space, a space conducive for learning, a space conducive for creativity, a space conducive for thought. My name is Randy Cantrell. The website is leaningtowardwisdom.com. Until next time, I'll see you.